So welcome everybody to this event. Well, this is the first event we're having this year in the AWS Nigeria user group. This is, we'll always like to start the year with the recap of reInvent of the previous year, kind of to get everybody, to kind of help everybody and remember or to recall all the new features and services that AWS, introduced in the last reInvent. So this is our recap. We have, I'll go through the agenda for today. Well, but before I get to that, I'll talk about the speakers. We have Veliswa Boya, who is a senior AWS Developer Advocate. She's going to be speaking on the top 10 most talked about features that AWS introduced in reInvent. We also have Ewere Diagboya, who is our AWS community hero. He's going to be talking about AWS Cloudformation Modules. I would ask them to introduce themselves before their session so you can get to know them more. And just to dive into the agenda for today's meeting, I basically just introduced Ewere and Veliswa. After their sessions, we're going to have a Q&A. So if you have any questions, if you had any question that came to mind, if you thought about anything in particular while they were speaking, you can send it into the chat. We have the moderators that will pick your questions, and we will ask your questions at the end of the session during the Q&A session. If you do not have any questions at that time, and maybe your question comes up during the Q&A session, you can always use the Zoom raising of hand icon, and you can speak. You can speak up and answer ask your question. After that, we'll talk about, we'll have a raffle. Well, I call it a raffle, but it's not really a raffle. But we are going to have some questions that will be thrown out based on the presentations that we just had. So from Veliswa and Ewere, we'll ask some questions, and people that are able to get the questions correctly are going to, get free AWS credits. We'll also have a few special announcements and updates on the community and the progresses that we have made, and some things that we are working on. So we'd like to share that with you guys. So I think we can start with Veliswa's presentation. So Veliswa, please go ahead and introduce yourself, let the people know who you are, and tell us about the top 10 most talked about services from reInvent.
Okay, let me just start with quick introductions, but just before I start, I know I promised as I was communicating with you all that I've got a surprise guest. I scrolled through the invite, I don't see him, but I do see another colleague of mine from AWS. So if there's time at the end of this session, I'll ask Matt to just say hi quickly. But yeah, on to my introduction. So as already discussed today, I'm going to go through just highlights of what was announced at reInvent 2020. Looking just at the top 10 that I've been seeing people are talking about the most, that's what we're going to go through today. It will mainly just be discussions, and I've got one or two demos that we'll also look at. So my name is Veliswa Boya. I'm a Senior Developer Advocate at AWS. If you're needing to get hold of me, connect. Actually, it would be awesome to connect. I'm on Twitter and I'm on LinkedIn as well. You can find me there. So what are we going to actually talk about today? I've just splashed there some of the services and features that we're going to look at. EBS GP3, DevOps Guru, Cloud Shell, ECS Anywhere, ECS Anywhere, all of those. But we'll go into detail as we go through everything. What you're also going to notice with each slide that announces a new service, you're going to see I've got the Learn More. The Learn More that I have here, it points to a session on the AWS reInvent, that website, where you can go watch a session that will take you into more detail about the service or the feature that we're actually talking about. You'll see as we go through all of them. So the first one that we're going to look at is EBS GP3, which was announced at reInvent 2020. So just going back quickly, elastic block storage, as we all know, is your virtual hard disk drive in the cloud. It gives you persistent block storage volumes for you to use with your Amazon EC2 instances. So you provision them and you attach them to an EC2 instance. what they give you is it gives you high availability and it gives you high durability because it automatically replicates in your AZ, in your availability zone. It protects you. The replication protects you from component failure. So if one component fails, you find because there's been replication. So what EBS volumes also do, they give you fast read and write because unlike your object storage, your S3, they don't need to read an entire file during a transaction. So it's very fast read and write.
Hi again, can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
You can hear me, okay. How much time do I have? Because I might have to skip a few slides, I don't know.
Okay, so we have about 40 minutes, so I think you can go for there. Yeah.
Okay, great. I've sent my slides to Sam. So
Okay.
sorry, to Akil. Akil, if you can just help me. Akim, please, if you can just help me.
I have it, I'm gonna share it now. So, share.
I think this just means then that you all don't have a choice. You're going to have to invite me back because I've had to take out my demos just so the slides can go through.
Not a problem.
And we can start here. I think that's where we left off, right?
Yes.
Okay, we were still talking EBS GP3. So this was actually the first announcement that I was actually starting to talk about when I got cut off. So EBS GP3. So just a quick background. Elastic block storage is your virtual hard disk drive in the cloud, and it gives you persistent block storage volumes that you get to use with your EC2 instances on AWS. What it gives you is high availability and it gives you high durability because of the replication that takes place as soon as you spin up an EBS. So it gives you fast read and write times because unlike your object storage, like your S3, it does not need to read an entire file during a transaction. So it doesn't have to worry about your metadata and all of those things. So it makes for very fast read and write times. So you attach it to your EC2. You have two types, your SSD-backed volumes and your HDD-backed volumes. And this GP3 that we're talking about today is SSD-backed. It's the same family as the GP2 that we all know that we've been working with for quite a while. Just next slide, please. So we announced GP2. We launched GP2 in 2014, and it became very popular very quickly. And the reason for that was that you could buy storage and then you would get IOPS and your throughput with that. And that's why developers loved it. The downside of that was that now, if you want to get more IOPS and you want to get more throughput, you have to now buy storage because that's how you provision for more IOPS and more throughput. So what we've done with GP3 is that we're decoupling how you provision your storage, how you provision your IOPS and your throughput. And what this actually ends up meaning for the developer is that you're saving on costs. So you're not buying storage that you don't need. If you want IOPS, that's all you pay for. If you want throughput, that's all you pay for. And what we also did with this announcement of GP3 is that we've reduced the price per gigabyte of GP3 storage by 20%. And so this was one of the exciting announcements that came out and had a lot of people talk about it a lot. It came out of reInvent. And next slide. I did already mention that GP3 is in the SSD-backed family of volume types. And we can see that it sits right next to GP2. And your typical use cases that you would use it for is your virtual desktops, your medium-sized single instance databases, and your, like for your dev and test as well, you can actually use GP3 for. So the next slide that you're gonna see is where we're showing how you provision, because I talked about, sorry, just one back. I talked about provisioning for a GP3 versus how you provision for a GP2. You can see on your top left, it's my left, is how you provision for your GP2. You had to go and buy a bigger storage to get more IOPS. But now at the bottom, you see that's how you provision for your GP3. It's all decoupled from each other. You go and buy storage the way you want, IOPS the way you want, and throughput the way you want. All of it is independent of each other. So that's the first talked about announcement that came out of reInvent. And then the next slide, we have Proton. And this is another one that I've seen already articles about comparing it to the other existing services of AWS. So what is Proton? So what you always get, and especially you get this at big enterprises, you have platform teams that need to make sure that they control the environment so that developers cannot, there needs to be some control that's put in place. What then happens with that is that developers are then robbed of some level of flexibility. So Proton comes and it bridges the gap between the two. So what it does, it strikes a balance on the need for operators to control the environment and the developers' need for flexibility. We're going to see as we go through the slides how it actually works. So Proton is a fully managed deployment service for container and serverless apps. What it does, it ties together very well, ties all your aspects of your modern application deployment into one seamless workflow. The next slide, we're going to look through the workflow of how Proton actually works. Yeah, so this is how it would work. There are two types of templates that need to be built. So the platform team creates an environment template. This defines your shared resources. They deploy the environment based on these environment templates. They then create a service templates, and these define your infrastructure, how monitoring is going to work, CI/CD resources. Sometimes your CI/CD resources you can actually define in your environment templates, then they are shared throughout the environment. But if you want to define specific ones just for a service, you can define them in the service templates. That's your platform team, they define your environment templates and then your service templates. So then after all of that is done, your developers then go through a web interface and then they pull those service templates and they link their source code to them, and then they deploy service that they deploy an application that is as defined in those service templates. And that is Proton, how it works. And the next slide you're going to see, I mentioned earlier that we're starting to see questions from developers. I saw something on Stack Overflow as well that's trying to quote some confusion. How is Proton different to the service formation? And a very quick and simple answer is that you use your service catalog to define services that the developer can deploy within their application. So you're using a service catalog to say they only allowed EC2, they only allowed this and this and that, and then use Proton. In Proton, use the service templates to deploy a complete application stack that has those services that you've said in your service catalog are allowed for the environment. And then Cloudformation, it's very much like Proton. But what is very good with Proton is that Proton introduces a self-service component to everything. So you've got the templates there, and it's a self-service for the developers to go and get them, and they can use them to deploy. So that is the other announcement, Proton. If there are any questions, you can just stop me and then go through them. And then next that I saw being talked about, and I think the excitement exactly with the ECS and the one that's we're going to talk about after that is I'm excited about these two announcements, ECS Anywhere and EKS Anywhere. We had just gone through such a huge strategy definition, how we're going to handle containers, and we had one strategy for containers that sit on AWS and another one for containers that sit on another cloud, and we had another strategy for containers that sit on premises. And ECS Anywhere and EKS Anywhere kind of disrupts those strategies. And for me, when I heard about these two announcements, that was the big thing. So Amazon ECS Anywhere. So in the past couple of years, we've had, as AWS, customers ask for more flexibility in how or where they can actually deploy containers using Amazon ECS. So they've been asking for, saying that they've got these use cases that need to have the applications run outside of AWS regions and have them be closer to where their other services are. We all know that the reality is that not everything is in the cloud. There's just so many enterprises out there that still have huge, very critical workloads that run on premises. So how do they bring what's sitting on AWS closer sometimes to what's sitting on premises? They were looking for ways to still use the functionality that they get out of ECS because they like the fact that it's simple and they like the fact that it actually just works. So because now they've got these deployment requirements that may go beyond AWS owned infrastructure, and they didn't want to have exactly like what I mentioned with my previous employer, where you've got one strategy for on-prem and another one for another cloud. So then we came up with this solution for them, Amazon ECS Anywhere. This is a capability in Amazon ECS that enables this customer to easily run and manage all their container-based applications on premises, including it can run on managed infrastructure. So what this announcement does is that it allows our customers to use this on any compute infrastructure. It can be an infrastructure that sits on our AWS regions or on local zones, wavelengths, outposts, or any on-premises environment. Where they can be, so as where they can run containers as actually gives you. The next one that I mentioned just now is Amazon EKS Anywhere. So what EKS does, this is a new deployment option for Amazon EKS. It lets you create and operate Kubernetes clusters on premises. And again, just like ECS, this can be on VMs or bare metal. It comes with installable software packages, and these help you create and operate your Kubernetes clusters on premises. And then you also get an automation tooling. This will help you do the support of your cluster lifecycle. With this announcement, we also announced Amazon EKS distro, and this is the exact same distro that distribution that you have for Kubernetes that we use on EKS for clusters on AWS. So what this does for the customer, it lets the customer automate cluster management, reduce support costs, and it helps them eliminate all that effort, redundant effort actually, of using multiple tools for operating Kubernetes clusters. So you don't need OpenShift somewhere else, and then you've got EKS somewhere else. It is, you've just got one single plane where you can actually do all your management. EKS Anywhere is fully supported by AWS, and you can use the EKS console on AWS to manage or monitor your clusters no matter where they are running. So they can be on AWS or they can be on premises, and you've got just the one console to manage them and to view them. So that was EKS Anywhere. The next one is there. Yeah, this had a lot of developers very excited. The Lambda Container support. This simplifies or brings another dimension to how you deploy your Lambda functions. There was initially, when this was announced, some confusion around, do you mean Lambda is now running on ECS, or what does this mean? This is not Lambda running on ECS. This is you deploying your Lambda functions, but being able to use container images to do that. So just a bit of background. With AWS Lambda, you upload your code and you run it without worrying about servers. I know when I learned AWS, this was actually the first place where I actually started to play around. I don't come from an infrastructure background. For me, the fact that I didn't have to worry about configuring servers and worrying about networks, that for me just looked like the best place for me to start. other thing I really enjoyed is the fact that Lambda integrates very well with all these other services on AWS. So that is Lambda. So many customers enjoy the way that Lambda works. But now, if you've invested in container to development workflows, you can't use that very same approach to build your applications, use Lambda. So you've got these workflows for containers, and you've invested quite a lot of time there. But now you can't use those same workflows when you want to deploy onto Lambda. So what we've done with this announcement is that we let you use those workflows to deploy and build your applications using Lambda. So AWS Lambda now supports packaging and deploying your functions as container images. It makes it easy for you as a customer to build serverless applications by using container tools and dependencies that you already are familiar and are very okay with. So with that, you're now using your containers and you're deploying onto Lambda. So now that you've deployed on Lambda, you get to benefit from Lambda's you've got those advantages of Lambda that make Lambda stand out. Now that you've deployed onto Lambda, you get to benefit from those things like your automatic scaling, your high availability, your start times that are really, really minute, just like typically tens of milliseconds instead of seconds. And that integration that I mentioned before, that you natively integrate with 140 AWS services now that you've deployed onto Lambda. While doing all of this, you only pay for what you use, which is the other big advantage that you get out of running your applications on Lambda. So that's the announcement on Lambda container support. The next slide you're going to see, I've just highlighted there. Before, you could create functions, you could author from scratch or use a blueprint and browse serverless app repository when you're creating a function. But now there's that additional option of a container image. So you will create a container, you build your image, and then you will push it to Amazon ECR. And then you will, when you now go into create your function, this will pull from ECR, and then you will optimize. And then that is how you will then deploy your function using container images. The rest of it, that basic information at the bottom, the rest of it stays the same. It's just where you are actually getting your definition. Your definitions like what libraries do I want to actually load? All of those, you do that in that container image that you build, that you push to Amazon ECR, and then here it just pulls from then, and then when it builds your application, it just knows because you've already defined that in your container image. So how Lambda container support actually looks. The next one, the AWS fault injection simulator, and I'm really so sad that I had to remove my demos. This is one of my favorite announcements out of reInvent 2020. I did not pay much attention to chaos engineering until this came about. I think because chaos engineering wasn't really available as a managed service on AWS, but this makes it available. It brings it that much closer to you as a developer on AWS. So another key area where we as AWS are helping our developers is by making it easy for our developers to build resilient and high performing applications. So if you never stress your application, how are you going to know where it breaks? It's awesome that we've got testing, but with distributed systems, it's not always easy to pick up all the faults before they happen with just purely testing. So what chaos engineering does is that it subjects your infrastructure to failures so that you can quickly find weak spots that would be very difficult for you to find in any other way. We know this is not new because we've heard of Netflix and the Chaos Monkey, and Netflix did present at reInvent about this chaos engineering before. But up until now, chaos engineering has not been available to most customers because of the cost, because of how complex it can be to actually implement it, and also the knowledge that's required to implement chaos engineering. So at Amazon, we use chaos engineering quite extensively, and we find a lot of value in it. So we wanted to make it available to everyone, and that's why we introduced fault injection simulator. What this does, or what this is a fully managed chaos engineering service that makes it easy for you. Sorry, I'm going to answer the question. I just saw the question pop up. Is it fine? Can I answer it now?
Yes, please.
Okay, so chaos engineering is when you literally introduce chaos to your system. You are wanting to stress your applications because you want to see where all the weak points are. That is what chaos engineering is. So you will introduce failures, and then with that, you just want to see what your weak spots can be, or where they are. Does that answer the question? So I'm still saying what it is. Formulator is a fully managed chaos engineering service that helps you find all these weak spots at scale. It's across a range of for you are ailing it out to services of customers. So what this will then allow you to do and allow your team to do is to run on AWS. Predict action simulator, your teams can take action such as gradually or simultaneously impairing the performance of different resources to actually find out where are all my weak spots. So that is what your fault injection does. Let me just talk through. There would have been a demo here, but because of all my issues with my connectivity, I've had to remove the demo. So let me just talk through how you would set up and create a fault.
We lost you for a bit.
While she's reconnecting, let me answer the question as well in the chat on chaos engineering. So it really depends on, I mean, anyone who has got a big architecture and a big amount of infrastructure could use with testing the reliability. It is a bit of a different approach because you're purposefully breaking stuff and randomly. So it could be that you're switching off servers just to purposefully break the infrastructure.
I'm back, right?
I think, yeah, now you're back, Veliswa. I was just answering a question on chaos engineering. So yeah. It's really, there is no these kind of scenarios, but it's more this kind of approach and a more sort of random way of stress testing your infrastructure to make sure that you're highly available.
I think we can, Veliswa, can you go ahead with the presentation, and then afterwards we'll take the questions just to make sure we don't lose track of time.
I think she has gone off again.
I think we can move on to the next.
Okay, perfect.
Can you, hello? You can hear me, right?
Now we can hear you, but it was dropping off briefly, but keep.
Okay, you can hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Okay, so then let's move on to the next one, DevOps Guru. That is another announcement out of reInvent that has had people talking, and mainly this would be the connection to Code Guru that was announced reInvent 2019. Sorry, Akim, the next slide. Thank you. Hi, Sam, can you hear me?
Yes. Which slide are you expecting?
Okay, the next, just the next one. Just move to the next one, please, and then that will be DevOps Guru. Thank you.
Okay. we already moved to the DevOps Guru slide. Can you see DevOps Guru slide right now?
Yeah, I see the DevOps Guru.
Okay. I will give her a minute. Please bear with us, guys. There is a question about, are these services free to users? Matt, if you would like to jump in, please.
Which services specifically, Olokayode?
Okay, yeah, we almost done.
Yeah.
Fault injector simulator.
Yes, we'll take your question later. Welcome back, Veliswa. Can you see the Amazon DevOps Guru slide?
Yes, I can. We're almost done. 4 more slides and then we're done. Actually, 3 more slides. So Amazon DevOps Guru is the other announcement that had people talking. And I would say most of the excitement around this is because of the connection to Code Guru that was announced at reInvent of 2019. As we all know, Code Guru was helping you, that was machine learning that helps you optimize your code. The runtime that is still available there is the Java runtime. So then DevOps Guru gets announced, and this is what DevOps Guru does. You constantly have, as developers, as business, there's always this need to reduce the noise, the need to understand what critical issues exist. But now, how do we bring in all the relevant data so that we can identify the cause very quickly and reduce all our mean time to recovery and solve all our problems very quickly. So Amazon DevOps Guru comes in to bridge exactly that gap. It's a fully managed ML-powered service that monitors your applications to automatically improve availability and downtime. So it collects all of this data from everywhere. It's different data from everywhere. And then based on the anomalies that it picks up, it will recommend resolutions for you. It is easy to use in that you don't have to configure anything and there's no ML experience that you actually need. It does auto detection of operational issues. Like I mentioned already, it combines all of that data from everywhere to determine your application behavior. It helps you with quick resolution because there's ML-powered insights and recommendations that you get out of the anomalies that it actually picked up. It's highly scalable and it maintains availability because now you are proactively responding to anomalies, and it reduces that noise of your alarm fatigue, always dealing with alarms, because there's recommendations and you can proactively go and fix issues. So that's what Amazon DevOps Guru does. It's another one where I've had to take out my demo for because of all these issues that I have today. So the next one is Lambda per millisecond billing. So this is another one. So we launched Lambda in 2014. So since Lambda was launched in 2014, how the billing worked is that you are being charged for the number of times that your code is executed, so your number of requests, and for the time that your code actually executes. So we would round this up to the nearest 100 milliseconds, which is your execution duration. We defaulted it to this, we rounded up to this. So what we're doing now with Lambda per millisecond billing is that we round up the duration to the nearest millisecond with no minimum execution time. So if you had code that ran for 70 milliseconds, you would be billed for 100 milliseconds regardless. What this does, this new announcement, is that immediately you're getting a 30% reduction in your billing. So if your code runs for 70 milliseconds, that's what you get billed for. So with this new pricing, you pay less most of the time, especially if your function actually runs for less than 100 milliseconds. Things like your low latency APIs. You now have more incentive to actually optimize the time, the length of time that your function runs for. You want to bring it below that 100 millisecond because this actually saves you money. So that's Lambda per millisecond billing. And I'm not going to do Cloud Shell because I saw Ewere did a very awesome demo already on Cloud Shell. So we can skip this one and go on to the last one, which is their Amazon EC2 Mac Instances. So what we were hearing a lot as AWS from our developers is that they're spending all this time and all these resources trying to build and maintain on-premises macOS environments, and they would rather use that time to build creative and useful apps. So what Amazon EC2 Mac Instances does is to enable our customers, our developers, to run on-demand macOS workloads in the cloud for the very first time. This was never available anywhere else before. This extends the flexibility and the scalability and the cost benefits of AWS to all Apple developers. So with EC2 Mac Instances, developers can create apps for iPhones, for iPads, for Macs, Apple Watch, Apple TV, Safari, all of those. They can provision and access macOS environments within minutes and scale capacity as they need. And what that gives them is, because all of this is happening in the AWS cloud, it gives them AWS's pay-as-you-go pricing. So cost also gets improved quite significantly. EC2 Mac instances are powered by AWS Nitro systems. They are built on Apple Mac Mini computers, Mac Minis, and you get a choice of 2 macOS operating systems. There's the Mojave 10.14 and a Catalina 10.15 that's already available. And we are going to bring support for macOS Big Sur very soon. So what EC2 Mac instances do, they provide developers with a seamless way to access other AWS services, because you now are on AWS, and so you can collaborate with your team and you can build together. And just like any other EC2 instance, these then integrate with our other services like your VPCs, your EBS, your ELBs, and your SSM. So that is Amazon EC2 Mac instances. And we managed to get to the end with all these issues we powered through. That is the end. Thank you very much. Sam, the next slide, just for my context there, if anyone would like to connect, I would really like to connect with you guys on social media. So my details are on the next slide. That is that. Thank you everyone for sticking it out. And please, let's connect. Something else that I just want to mention, we've just created on LinkedIn, a LinkedIn group for AWS builders in Sub-Saharan Africa. Once you land on LinkedIn and we connect, please find that, I should have brought the link for that here. What we're trying to do with this group on LinkedIn is to bring all of us together so we can discuss things like help with certifications, help with jobs, share knowledge and share information. And information like we're going to have the next meetup, we want to share this so that everybody we can start collaborating together. So that's my details. And that was the top 10 most talked about announcements from reInvent 2020. I'm so sorry we missed those demos. Maybe we'll find another way, I don't know. Maybe at some point we'll have a workshop where we can actually go into detail into some of these services, because they're very exciting. Thanks again for inviting me here today. I've been so excited about being here, and hopefully one day when things open up, we can visit or something like that. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Veliswa. And just so you know, you're definitely, we're definitely gonna be sending more invitations to you so you can come and show us those demos. I think all the services you just showed us are all very, I can immediately see, how they can even help my daily job better already. Yes. I have a question, but then if anybody else has questions, please feel free to throw those questions in. My question is about Lambda Container. So I think that's what it's called, Lambda Container Service.
Support, yeah.
Support. So there has been times where AWS has stopped supporting specific runtimes, like Node.js. I think 10.x was they recently stopped supporting it recently. does this kind of help to use older runtimes on Lambda?
So once you get to Lambda, everything is exactly like you know now with Lambda. So what this container support for Lambda does, all it does is just help you it's a way of you bringing your application to Lambda. So if you were going to be impacted, you would have been impacted whether you were bringing your application to Lambda using a zip format or going onto the IDE immediately and tapping. It's a very same. All this does is it's a way of you bringing your code up. With the container support, you actually can package bigger applications because this can take up to 10 gigabytes versus your 10 megabytes that you have as your maximum for, I think it's 10 or 50 that you have for your zip format. So it's just a way of you bringing your code. Once you're in Lambda, it's the exact same experience.
Yeah, so let me add to that. So the runtime here is not the language anymore. The runtime becomes container. That's the Docker. So you need to use the right version of Docker. So whatever is in the container, I don't think it really matters at that point in time because the trigger at this point is the Docker run entry point, no longer the function entry point for your application code. Yeah. It's no longer the function handler, but the Docker entry point. So the runtime is not the language anymore. It's container that is the runtime this time. So it's pretty different.
Thank you for clarifying.
There was I misunderstood you there.
No problem. There was a question that came in about are these services that you talked about, are they free?
Pricing varies. So I could share a link to where you'd find pricing on each, but pricing varies.
Got it. Is there anyone?
Specifically, the question was about the pricing for Fault Injector. That has not been released yet. So once that is released, you can see that on the Fault Injector webpage.
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
I think that, and I think DevOps Guru also is not out as yet. ECS Anywhere, the pricing is also not out as yet. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions, guys? Please feel free to unmute your mic if you want to ask your question as well directly to Veliswa. I'll take the chance to say thank you to everybody. It seems every single person was actually able to vote on the poll. So we really appreciate that feedback and we'll be using it going forward. It seems there are no other questions. Odera is asking if we can get slides for the presentations.
Yes, I was busy typing the answer. Let me just prep them and resend them to you guys, and then you can distribute. Is that fine?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, should have them early next week.
Okay, thank you. All right, 1 second.